Hey guys, so welcome back to Amazon Labs once again. In today's session, we are going to cover the 6 core pillars for doing your Amazon FBA business. So without much of a delay, let's quickly start this session. Now, the first coremost pillar is your product market fit. Now, typically here we are speaking about demand for your product. Certainly, there are various checkpoints when it comes to Amazon FBA business, and that is what you get to learn in any of the courses, right? So the first and foremost thing, you need to have a right product. When I say a right product, you need to make sure that there are at least a few sellers with lesser number of reviews doing well in terms of sales. And the second important factor which you also should be considering is your marketplace. Now, you need to be in a place where there is good demand and also there is a good per capita income, because that is where people have more money to spend and buy, right? Now, if you evaluate these two metrics, the best marketplace for you to start selling your product will be Amazon USA, right? So that should be the place where you should start launching your product or testing your product. Well, there are also other marketplaces with good demand, etc. However, you need to note that in terms of GDP, in terms of market potential, US is still the biggest. So that is where you should be focusing the most. So this is one of the important parameters. And the next important aspect is your keywords. Well, you see there are your competitors with lesser number of reviews doing well in terms of sales. Now you need to understand from where is that these guys are getting their sales from. You need to know your roots. You also need to be very clear on your customer intent. Now you see there are several keywords where your competitors are making most of their sales. You need to study those keywords and understand the intent behind those keywords, isn't it? And then naturally you have your competition. Now competition is just one of the metrics. It doesn't matter, because if you're trying to bring something better than what is already there in the market, you should be not worried so much about your competition. But yes, it is true that when you have competitors with lesser number of reviews, it will be much easier for you to enter the market and get the initial few sales, or relatively at a lower PPC cost. And the next important aspect is your conversion ratio. Now, well, this is one metric which you get to view after launching and testing your first batch. However, it is still a good practice to understand how is the conversion ratio in the market as a whole. For example, you see your software tools are saying that your competitors are selling so well in terms of sales, but what if their conversion ratios are so low? What does it mean? It means that they would require more number of clicks to make one sale, which also means that you are going to pay for each and every click, which also means that you will end up spending more in terms of PPC. And then you need to see if that spend is within your gross margin or not. Well, to make it very simple, it's always good to check what is the average market conversion ratio. You may check it through brand analytics, or you may go to your growth opportunities section and then find this number. But you also need to understand that this number varies from product to product, because it completely depends upon the kind of value you are getting onto the table. If you have a product which is better than rest of your competition, naturally, your competitors conversion ratios could be lower, but still you can do much better because you have a better product at a better price, or a good price, right? Now when I speak about price, now here is the thing: we are definitely not trying to compete with Chinese sellers, because we cannot compete on price. Now we are going to compete more in terms of value. Now here is the thing: when I say value, you still need to play it safe. Now let's say you need to understand what is the average price range or just make a note of all the competitors who are doing well in terms of sales, and try to understand the price range. What is your lower threshold, and then what is your higher threshold or upper threshold? Now, when you're working your numbers, you make sure you're within that threshold. Do not exceed that higher threshold, and that is how you can be safe, right? Now, once you test the product, once you start selling well, once you gain your organic positions, once you have index your product on important keywords, certainly you can increase the prices, but at the beginning you want to play safe. And then you also need to understand if there is any brand dominance. You see a particular niche, and then in that niche you see there are one or two brands who are dominating the market. Maybe they are driving a lot of external traffic. Maybe they are getting most of their sales from branded keywords where they have got so high, or where their conversion ratios are so high, right? So if that is so, it's better to look for a better product. Well, to summarize, you need to have a good product, you need to have a differentiated product, you need to be aware of your competition in terms of pricing, in terms of keywords. Not just keywords, you also need to know the intent behind those keywords, and then naturally price. So overall, overall market demand, demand, supply, and the gap. Now gap in terms of, is there a scope for you to add more value to your customers? So that's the gap what I'm speaking about. Well, let's move on to your second metric, which is your profitability. Now, we all as business owners, we need to be on the top of our numbers. It's all numbers game. Now, once you switch on your PPC, it's not about what keyword, it's all about what is your conversion, what is your sales. It's all data driven, it is all numbers driven. I did share a couple of reports in my previous videos in terms of how is that we present our numbers to our customers. You see, it's all data driven. Well, before launching your products, now you need to understand, when it comes to selling on Amazon, you need to gain expertise on all these 6 pillars, right? If you are expert on one pillar and if you're not doing great on the other pillars, you have two choices. One, outsource it to somebody who can do it better, or upskill yourself and learn it and do it yourself, right? These are the only two options. Now, when I say that in terms of profitability, certainly you need to look forward to sell products which have got a minimum 35% of gross margin. Now, when I say that, you need to know for your product, what is your COGS, what is your cost of goods sold or manufacturing costs. You need to know what is your landed cost. Your landed cost is nothing but a sum of your manufacturing cost plus shipping cost. You need to know what is your FBA fee. You also need to know how much are you paying to your 3PL. You also need to know there is also a cost when you move the goods between 3PLs, or there are certain miscellaneous expenses. You need to factor in them. And more importantly, you also need to see over a period of time, your return rate, which you may not be able to calculate at the beginning, but once you launch, you will also get to see that number, but it is also a very important metric. So at this stage, be very clear of your landed cost, your FBA fee, be aware of your 3PL charges, and then make sure your gross margins are over and above 35%, right? And then comes the most important aspect, which is your differentiation. Now, see guys, here we don't want to sell the exact same product which is already there on Amazon. If you're trying to do so, just think, why would people buy from us? Now, somebody who is selling the exact same product, let's say if you're starting with 300 units, your competitor is selling the exact same product for a while, isn't it? Now, his order quantities, he could be ordering 5,000 units of 10,000 units a month, right? Now, certainly his price point will be much lower than you. Or what if supplier themselves are selling those products on Amazon Marketplace? Now, naturally, you cannot compete with your competition. So you are at a disadvantage. Now, you can cover off this disadvantage by only through improving your product. Now, when I say improving your product, you also need to be a little sensitive. You cannot bring up so many improvements to an extent where your cost is so high and then customers are not interested. So you need to strike that balance. I would say you should be more of value driven. You need to have a good product at a right price. Okay, so you need to have a good product at a right price. I'm not saying the low price. Your pricing should be good. When I say good, it should be within the range that we spoke in our previous slides. Well, once you start to get sales, once you get your product indexed on various keywords, then that's a different story. But make sure that whatever you're doing, it's all value driven. Just put yourself in customer shoes and think what is that adds more value to your customers. In case if you're not able to figure out, the best way to understand this is but just by going through your customer reviews. Just see who are your top competitors. Just try to study all their customer reviews, and then you will be able to spot several opportunities to improve the product, and then just work on them. Speak to your supplier, get the improved version onto the market ASAP, and then launch it. And now once you launch it, you have your advertising cost. Now the reason why I said 35% gross margin, because you're going to spend at least 15 or 10 to 15% on your PPC. Now when it comes to PPC, the first foremost metric or the very important metric is your conversion ratio. Now your conversion ratio will decide whether you are going to be profitable or not. Okay, now if your conversion ratio is high, it means that you would require lesser number of clicks to get one sale. Now certainly you can work upon improving the cost per click through PPC, right? But your conversion ratio is what, it's driving the overall performance. Now then you have your return on ad spend, right? Your ACOS or ROAS, and also you have your TACOS. Now these two also are important metrics. Now you need to understand that these are the outcomes of having a good product, a good price, good listing, good images, a well optimized listing, and then right keyword strategy or right PPC strategy. And then you have something called as your inventory and cash flow management. Now here is the thing, once you start selling well, you need to make sure that you're not running out of stock, because if you're running out of stock, you're just losing upon that momentum. Now in any business, momentum is very important. Once you catch up sales, it's very important that to make sure you're never running out of stock. And in order to do that, you need to plan your inventory, make a note of you need to understand, okay, how many units do I have at my 3PL? You need to understand, okay, how many sales am I doing on a weekly basis? If I continue at the same pace, for how many days will my inventory last? Accordingly, you need to see what is your production lead time, what is your shipping lead time, and then work with your supplier. At this stage, you may also need to think about your cash flow. Now the best way to work on it is just speak to your supplier, try to negotiate upon your payment terms. Now once you get one or two iterations, one or two batches, by then you're well connected with your supplier, just start working upon your payment terms, right? In that ways you will have a little bit of relaxation in terms of cash flow. So that's one very good lever which you should all explore. And then we have our last pillar, which is customer service. Certainly we want to sell good quality products to our customers. Now once we sell that product, it's also important that we have good email sequences to contact them, connect with them, stay in touch with them, not just to seek feedback, but also to understand their feedback, and see if we are able to get any new product improvement ideas or opportunities. So that is how you can leverage your customer base. Now it's very important to make sure you have a good email sequence mechanism. There are so many tools which provide this service. So just make sure this is in place. And that's it. So this is all we need to do. If you want to sell successfully on Amazon, you just need to work on these 6 pillars. If you're if you're able to perform this well, then you will certainly have good sales, and you will also have a good business in no time. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. If that is so, I request you to give me a thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel, share it with your friends, and I thank you so much for participating on this recording. Thank you guys. Have a great day ahead. Goodbye.